the Dele Alli interview on Gary Neville's The Overlap, which was fascinating and sad, and told us a lot about what Dele Alli's been going through and how it's impacted his playing career. T and Ricky, you've both watched it, haven't you, boys?
Yeah.
What's your?
Have indeed.
Yeah. What before I've got some questions for you, but what was your overriding feeling of it, T?
Feeling very, very sad. As I said to you before we started recording, I feel almost paternal to these players because they're young enough to be my kids, a lot of them. And I did feel for him. I didn't realise he'd been through a lot of what he'd been through, especially in his childhood. And it's sad, and he's not going to be the last victim, but I'm hoping that this will be a tipping point.
What about you, Rick? Sorry, mate.
No.
Yeah, exactly the same, man. I just found it really, really sad. There was quite a lot of trigger warnings for myself, really. The stuff that he spoke about, trauma, how he's dealt with things, how he's feeling, a lot of that stuff, it brought back a lot of recent memories for myself, really. So with parallels, like watching him do that and how kind of brave he is on the kind of media levels, how much attention this is going to get is going to be incredible. And coming out and saying all those things, like T said, I hadn't realised a couple of things that he'd mentioned, which is just, it's harrowing to hear, really. And just hearing it in his voice and his body language as he's talking about it, and you can't help but feel like you just want to give him a massive hug, really. It was a tough watch. It really was.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I kind of skip over these things, not subjects are not stuff around this subject, but player interviews, ex-player interviews are just really not that interested. But the minute it started, it was captivating because this is and moving and sad as when I say captivating, I don't mean sort of entertaining in a positive sense, but in an important sense. What he was saying was extremely moving and made a lot of sense because what we witnessed him as a footballer was a player with incredible talent. The sky was the limit, and then suddenly it all just seemed to fall apart. And it probably wasn't that sudden. It was probably over a couple of years. Certainly he pinpoints Pochettino leaving as the kind of catalyst, and he talked about how much of a father figure and sort of a personality first rather than player first relationship that they had with each other. And it was just, you could see he needed someone like Pochettino to get the best out of him because what he was going through was coming to the surface. And it, no doubt coincided with Pochettino's dismissal to when Jose Mourinho came in as manager. We've got to talk about that because a lot of people out there are, kind of throwing some blame at the club and some blame at Mourinho and how he handled Dele and in that might have contributed to his demise as a footballer. Temporary demise, hopefully. But it was an incredibly brave thing to do. He's only just out of rehab, did he say 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
When that was recorded, I imagine that was recorded last week. So 3 weeks ago, it felt really soon to be talking about it. But he expressed how comfortable he was and how happy he is at the moment. He said mentally he's the best he's been in his life. He said he's in a place now that he wasn't at previously. And I can't think of another time when a Premier League footballer has been so candid on camera and talked so openly about their mental health and the things they've gone through. It was really eye-opening and needed, probably, because there's loads of people out there. Rick, you mentioned some of the stuff related to you. I think all of us, in terms of mental health conditions or dealing with sort of mental health issues, can relate to it, even if it doesn't directly, line up with exactly what's going on in your own life. It's not difficult to feel sorry for him and apply some of the things he's going through to our own lives. But yeah, it was. I can't think of another time. I think Danny Rose did one as well, but it was towards the end of his career, and I can't remember if he was playing first team football at the time. But yeah, it was it was significant. It felt like a significant moment.
I mean, you've had, sorry to cut you quickly, Fab, but we've kind of had Paul Merson with his issues as well, and I think Tony Adams did Sporting Chance for a lot of footballers of alcohol and gambling issues. But as you've said, this feels a lot different to that because football is known for having a drinking culture and the gambling culture. But this isn't. Obviously, Delhi had issues with drink, but this is more like
prescription drugs.
Yeah, his entire life, prescription drugs that clubs probably hand out to players willy-nilly.
Well, he just to be clear on that, they said that lots of footballers are given sleeping pills before games to ensure they get enough hours, but it's one tablet per night, and it's generally before a game. Whereas that was what was given to players at Spurs, and Gary Neville talks about players being given throughout football sleeping tablets before a game. But what he went on to do was then find ways to get more, and was taking them throughout the day. So there was no accusation that he was given too many. He was given the correct dose in inverted commas by the club.
No, of course, but then they got to kind of recognize that can happen to players. Players can get addicted to sleeping pills. But I think the thing with Delhi, he's got a very unique relationship with our fans. Very polarizing. There's some people who were very harsh on him towards the end of his time at Tottenham, and there's just a massive outpouring of love. I mean, sometimes I kind of measure how popular a player is how popular they are with fellow players, and I found that even if you look on Instagram, there's always other players bigging up Delhi, even when he wasn't playing so well. He always was quite a popular guy. And I think he mentioned at one point that he wasn't used to, receiving love and receiving advice, and he always ignored it. But it feels like after this spot of rehab and therapy that he's probably a bit more receptive to the likes of Ricky, you and me giving him a hug. Everybody's in the past about to said fuck off. So hopefully he is on the mend, and I really hope he gets back to what it was and maybe even better.
There was a lot of stick of him, and I was guilty of it as well. Like, I said, he's not good enough. I've called him a rough diamond for a long time. Not that my opinion means anything at all, but you just mentioned fans, giving him a hard time. I think I probably gave him a hard time and thought that perhaps parts of his career was a bit flash in the pan. He was incredible, but I felt like it was a bit overrated. And then obviously when you hear the things he was going through and what was the things that had happened to him and how it impacted him as a footballer, it makes complete sense now. So I do feel a little bit kind of guilty and sheepish about the things that I said. I can't remember specifics, but it was more or less what I just mentioned. But how are you supposed to know? As fans, the club didn't even know. His fellow players didn't know what was going on, and he wouldn't even talk to his own family, his adopted family. So it's difficult for fans to appreciate mentally what goes on with these players, especially. You need to, and I think this is a great example. You need to accept and appreciate that these are human beings and not just footballers. But I think it was, it's difficult for the club or fans to talk about things or talk about his career, the latter part of his career at Tottenham, in any other way than what we can see on the pitch. I mean, we do it now. We're talking about Sanchez, booing Sanchez. So if Sanchez's form has dropped off a cliff, he could be going through, stuff. It might not be, but he could be going through stuff, and you just don't know. As a fan, it's impossible to know. I think overall, you could just be a bit kinder to players and realise that it's not just about the money they're making, but they're human beings as all. And this is something we've talked about in the Fighting Cock before. Rick, what did you like? A few conversations out there saying Mourinho and the club handled Dele Alli incorrectly, that they could have done more for him. What do you make of those statements?
It's tough. It's a tough one, really. So with someone that is obviously hurting, that they're obviously the mentality is not there, their well-being is not there, they're maybe not taking care of themselves, and it's noticeable. And there's only so many times that you can say to someone, do you want to go and see a counsellor? Do you want more support here? Do you want this? Whatever they need. But then you eventually you close up, like he said. He wasn't open. He wasn't honest. When Mourinho came in, it was someone totally different to Poch, totally different environment. and you never know whether you can be as open and honest to your new boss. You don't know whether they're going to kind of have that as a carrot to dangle over you. Oh, well, you know, you literally told me last week that your mentality is not there. How can I play you in a game? And all you want to do is play football, when the media constantly have this witch hunt about your lifestyle and how you're doing and stuff like that. So it's a really kind of it's a tough one to juggle. Like, obviously I wasn't there with the club and what they're offering, but I'm sure they would have gone through the normal kind of procedures. But then you can only help someone as much as they want to be helped, and you can only offer them and support them as much as you physically can do. And once you've kind of, you know, I would say in a business environment, once you've ticked those boxes and they've said, no, I don't need that, no, I'll be fine, no, you know, what else can you do if they're not willing to come forward? And then again, with Mourinho and his different management style and different way how he treats people, and he's kind of got that more, whereas Poch's arm around the shoulder, I want to hear about you as a person. Let's forget about the football. How are you doing? That kind of father figure, empathetic. Whereas Mourinho felt like he was more, if I chastise a player in the media, that will give them the fire in the belly to go back and show me and show the world that they're better. But people, not all people are like that. And if you're in that type of spiral, that's just not going to help you.
Probably the last
you're kind of going to go, you're just going to go into your shell even more, and you're going to feel lonely and helpless, and not really anywhere to turn to. And then in the end, it's kind of like you have not only Tottenham, not only the media, but as fans, he's not playing his best. He's not playing, you know, like he was under Poch. Maybe it's time for a fresh start. Maybe he needs a new environment. Maybe he needs a new manager and new people around him. Maybe it's best that we let him go to Everton, and you just don't know. You think you act in those times what you think is best. So I think it's hard to kind of level the blame at Tottenham and specifically at Mourinho, which I don't think in the way he was feeling was ever going to kind of be conducive to him returning to kind of a full mental well-being, rather, because you have to look at the whole squad and not just a single player. So if you've got Harry and Hugo and other players saying, Jose, he's putting us through the mill, but it's good for us and stuff, but then you've got kind of fringe players where they are finding it tough mentally, that you kind of you go with the squad, really.
Well, you have to, I guess. But I mean, Mourinho's biggest failing here, I guess, is his inability in that instance to be personable and understand what Dele Alli's going through. But every manager is different, and Mourinho's achieved his successes doing what he'd done, and doing the way and behaving in the way that he did. And fundamentally, you're asking these players to perform at the very highest level. And what Mourinho has done for his career up until that point is everything that he demonstrated, I guess, in that interview was hard line. If someone isn't pulling their weight, they'll be called out. And if they don't like it, they can go. And you've seen that many, many times previously with him. Paul Pogba, for example. But he also did show some sort of relative amount of humility. It's like saying that, you know, he said to Dele Alli, look, you're going to wake up tomorrow and your career's going to be gone. It'll be over, trust me. Because this happened to me. In a blink of an eye, I'm 50 odd years old and my career's over. What he didn't realise is that Dele Alli at that moment had fallen out of love with it all, because the trauma he'd gone through as a kid was coming out in his professional life. Imagine like having to deal with everybody has trauma in their lives, right? Some much more severe than others. But imagine having to try and operate at that level, having that stuff in your head. It's almost impossible. And especially if he's not willing or not able to get help at that stage, because you talked like with Eric Dyer and Harry Kane coming up to him, Ben Davies, and saying like, that's not right. What's going on here? They looked at him, looked that he wasn't right. And bearing in mind, they spent so much time together, and that didn't get him to the point where he needed to seek help, and it was actually having to go to Everton and then over to Besiktas, and then all of that not working for him to get to a position that actually no, I need to get help here. Even his own adopted family, he said in his own words, took him into a room, crying their eyes out, asking what's wrong, and he just felt nothing. He felt numb to all of this pain. So it was like you said, Ricky. It came to a position where he needed to make that decision himself, no matter how many times people, suggested it to him and how good it would be for him. All of us have to, if we feel like we need help with whether it be counselling or anything else, has to come to that point on their own, really. Mostly. Let's talk about something a bit more positive. He's now in a... Actually, before we do that, how good was Gary Neville in this interview, by the way? He gets a lot of stick. I thought he was fantastic.
I thought it was...
Go on.
No, I thought it was amazing, actually. Just the way he let Dele speak, he interjected at the right times. And then he even had a bit of self-awareness to say, I'm part of the media as well, even though the media have given you a bit of a pasting. And I thought it was very self-aware, a very good interview. One thing I kind of gleaned from the interview was how much of a good egg Eric Dyer is. And you mentioned Davison Sanchez getting grief from the fans. Dyer was in a similar position as well, but he just seems like a really good bloke in the dressing room. And it was heartwarming. I mean, even Harry Kane puts out a tweet saying, we're all thinking of you, Dele. But it was a really well-done interview. You're going to get people who see the clips and do a 10-tweet thread about what they think about Dele Alli. But I believe, as I said at the start of the pod, I think this should be a tipping point for other footballers who are suffering, not to be like, be kind, it's okay to not be okay, but this is something different whereby a way in which managers manage their squads and manage their teams. I mean, some squads are massive, but maybe other players feel more empowered to speak out in light of what Dele said.
I think the clip that the guys at the Overlap put together, where it sort of they mentioned, it was when he was talking about Mourinho and saying that when he woke up and he looked in the mirror and he's wondering if he could retire at 24. I understand completely why the Overlap did it. It tapped into the very question that all of us had: was Mourinho responsible for Dele Alli's downfall? When that was a very kind of binary way to look at it, and the interview does an incredible job of telling the entire story. But that clip in itself is quite inflammatory, and it forces you to go to watch the interview, which is its job, right? You've got to bring people towards the content so they do see the whole picture. So there's more value in having an inflammatory clip than just having a passive clip, because more people are going to see the whole interview, which is the most important thing. But a lot of people were reactive to that clip, as they always are. People read the headlines, don't read the story, and then they go on Twitter and start screaming and shouting. But what one of the biggest take homes is that he just seems. And what he's saying now, you hope 100% that's where he's at. But these things, I imagine, undulate, and sometimes he'll feel great, sometimes he'll feel less good. But he's in a mind state, he says, that he's not only wants to play as well as he was 5-6 years ago, but he feels like he can get better. What an amazing thing that would be if we watched Dele Alli return to what he did in that peak season under Pochettino, where him, Son, Eriksen and Kane were unplayable. We've got a question here from Zeus. He says, he didn't need to add Ndombele. The question's fine, but anyway. If Ange gets Ndombele balling out, should we give him a crack at Dele? Given the way he talked about Pochettino and how personable Pochettino was with him and what a father figure he was, if it doesn't work out at Everton, would it be the end of the world if, firstly, on a human level, you give Dele Alli a place where he's comfortable to just train and develop again and get himself back up to match fitness? And secondly, is there any loss in re-signing him if he becomes available, Rick?
Right. I'd obviously have no problem with him coming back to Tottenham, training, getting his confidence back, being with people that he knows, and all of that. I mean, I have a huge affinity with Dele because he's from my city, and he plays for Tottenham, and I can see his secondary school from outside my window. It's like, I cannot believe that someone from here is playing for Tottenham or was playing for Tottenham, and was exceptional. But when I saw a few tweets of like Big Ange, he'll set him right, and from seeing the interviews with Ange, though he's quite personable to us and the media, he's come out before and he said that he likes to keep himself to himself and he's not that personable with the players because that's his management method. I think early on in his career he got burnt by that because he was a player, and then as a player progressed into a manager, then was managing the people that he was on a team with, and he just thought to kind of keep the distance, really. So I don't know whether he is, I mean, he would be empathetic, but I don't know whether it'd be that open dialogue as to have that conversation. How was your weekend? What'd you get up to? What did you and the missus, all that type of stuff. So I don't know whether it would be a work of a regen for Dele if we did give him a contract, and to see how he did. But yeah, man, I would definitely take him back. Wasn't there? There was a player that came back to us that was I can't remember who it was that was out of a club and was training with us. Fuck, who was it, man?
Oh, Bex did for a couple of days, couple of weeks.
Yeah, Bex did as well. Yeah, I swear there was someone else as well.
I know,
but anyway,
I think was Bale a little bit as well. Did he do it before signing? I know what you're saying, though.
Yeah. That's fine. Absolutely. Love to have him around Hotspur Way, but I don't know. It's just you got to find the right fit, and I think he was saying about Sean Dyche was saying that he's had some really good conversations with him.
He's great.
None of it has been about football.
Sean Dyche is a good man, right? He comes across as really good, really personable. Maybe he's already in the right place.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. I think maybe there might be a better fit there because he does sound like a guy that is going to be empathetic and to find out more about Dele and what's going on and manage the situation better that way. Yeah, always welcome him with open arms, definitely.